Hello, and welcome to round 2 of the Parenting Roundabout podcast. I'm Terry Morrow, and I'm here with Catherine Haleko. Say hi, Catherine.
Hello.
Usually on this podcast, we talk about parenting issues, but once a week, Catherine and I like to get together to discuss TV, movies, books, and other entertainment topics because it's nice to talk about something other than parenting for a change. This week, we once again have 3 TV-related things to talk about. We have a West Wing episode, we have the second episode of The Good Place, but first, Dancing with the Stars. Tonight was a no-theme night. It was just people dancing to songs inappropriate for the dance style. That was the theme of tonight. A tango to Old Town Road, really?
Old Town Road.
Who thought that was a good idea? A foxtrot to Jolene? I don't think so. Ay. There's been some news that this year the pros are not getting as much say in the music and costumes and sort of general theme of their dances as they have in the past. And boy, is it showing. Mm-hmm. So at least they can say, wasn't my idea.
Right. Was not my idea.
Don't blame me.
Put this song with this dance, with this outfit. Yeah.
Unbelievable. But I thought the dances in general were pretty decent. I enjoyed it. I thought some people were underscored. I thought some people were overscored. But, you know, it's Dancing with the Stars.
Right.
Scores and what you happen to see at home. Loose connection.
Right.
So.
Yes. And Lamar gets to go home, which I think is a blessing for everyone.
I think so, too. And I'm happy he went off on a good night.
Yes.
Relatively good night for him. And somebody on the chat I was watching said they're being too nice to him. He's definitely going home. And that was indeed the way it felt. So that was not a particularly suspenseful bottom 2.
No.
Even though Karamo has been scored very low, he's got potential.
Right. And
to
then
do better.
He did pretty well today.
He did pretty well.
Scored much better, at least.
Yes. Anyway.
Today.
Yeah. What did you think of guest judge Leah? How do we say her name? Ramini?
Ramini, I don't know.
Leah.
At first I was like, this is fun, and then it grew tiresome. The whole, because as I said a week or 2 ago, I'm sick already of everyone, booing Len when he says anything at all. Mm-hmm. And this was just like her egging that on quite a bit. So
true.
But I mean, I think it's fun when they do have, past contestants on. Mm-hmm. But she didn't really bring a lot to it.
Yeah, I mean, she had her shtick and she just worked it for the entire evening. So
right.
She does, I think, get it that some people have an easier time than others, but I don't know that you can really factor that into the scoring without either being accused of pushing certain people or, I don't know. It's why the show works best if everybody's on more or less of the same level, which I think this year it has been more than other years. Mm-hmm. A fairly even experience level.
Right.
But yeah, it is what it is, Right. The votes are the score for the people who maybe aren't such good dancers. They can get the votes.
Right. And I did vote this time.
Did you? You successfully voted. Did you vote on both?
No.
Did you vote online and text?
I just text, so I'm working up to it. But I cast.
Well, the online one is way easier because you can set up all your votes and then just put them in later in the evening if you have a change in mind. Actually, you can put them in. You can send them, and then you can always go back in and change. Mm-hmm.
Well,
so you could do it at the very beginning.
I was feeling pretty good. First of all, I was watching in real time, so I was able to, vote somewhat in real time. I did vote for Lauren ahead of time so that I wouldn't miss it. But
yeah, since she was late.
Yeah,
in the thing.
Yeah, so maybe next week I can try.
So who'd you vote for?
Lauren, James, and Kate.
Yeah, I voted for those 3, plus I voted for Kel for old time's sake, and also because he was in the bottom 2 last week.
Yeah, he's cute.
But I would say Lauren, Kate, and James are definitely my favorites. Mm-hmm. And not necessarily. Lauren got nice scores this week. I thought Kate and James were underscored.
Yeah.
But that's fine. It's a long game, you know? One week of lower scores gets you more votes the following week. So that's not a bad deal. At this point in the competition, it's not a bad deal. So
we get to see them all for Disney night.
Disney. Yes. And see if they're going to showmance Alan at Disney again. This is just going to be his thing every time. Every time he goes to Disney, he's going to be romancing some new girl. Oh, poor Alan. They've either got to stop setting him up or he's got to take some acting classes.
Yes. Not quite believable.
He's adorable. He's fine. Just the way he is. So, not too much to say.
Yeah.
It was fine.
Yeah, I like James and Emma's. I thought that judges were kind of harsh on them. You know,
I thought so too.
Okay, you know.
I liked that a lot. And I was also pleasantly surprised that Kate did so well with the, she had the tango, right?
Or the Argentine, I can't remember, it's the Argentine.
Argentine tango, yeah. One of them tangos. And I thought she did really well with it. And I thought that the judges were insufficiently appreciative. So, but it gave me a better sense that she could probably handle dances that one would consider less in her wheelhouse. I thought she did just fine.
I agree.
So, on we go. So, moving on from that, we watched the second episode of this final season of The Good Place, A Girl from Arizona Part 2, which was, as the title suggests, the second half of the episode from last week. And I liked this one a good deal better, and I felt much better at the end of it, and it made me wish that NBC had just given them an hour to put both of these episodes together, so then I wouldn't have felt so unsettled for an entire week and worried. I mean, I'm still worried, but I'm sure they're gonna pull it off. But I thought, you know, as we were saying last week, I just like them to have a little win here and there.
Right.
And I felt like there were some little wins here. I still do not enjoy Sad Jason. And the whole thing with Chidi and Eleanor is just heartbreak after heartbreak after heartbreak. And Kristen Bell sells it so spectacularly.
Yes.
That it's not a happy, fun watch. But I did feel like they were getting a little bit of their groove back. And I, loved the pep talk from Michael to Eleanor. And there were just some things in it that made me feel good about watching this show I love in a way that the first episode didn't. Now, you said you felt sort of the opposite.
Well, I mean, yes.
In a word.
In a word, yes. Although I very much loved the pep talk from Michael to Eleanor.
Yeah.
Where he was telling her that, not only was she the right person to do this, she was really the only person who could do it, or the best person. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I left it with a feeling the way you had felt last week. Mm-hmm. Like, just kind of worried and sad, and maybe it was all because of Blake Bortles. I don't know.
Yes, that's true. Just like breaking Jason's heart in two.
Yes.
The look that he gave was just heartbreaking in its own way.
Right. As they said on the Good Place podcast, this was Santa Claus isn't real level.
Yes. But he did have the good moment of realizing that, in fact, wanting to do something did not mean you had to immediately do it. This is a revelation. The sun broke over his head. So I don't know. The whole like romantic triangle thing with Jason and Janet and Tahani has always seemed kind of ridiculous. Mm-hmm. So it's hard to wrest real emotion and pathos out of it.
Yeah.
And again, just I don't want like sad Jason. I don't want Jason to be sad. Somebody give him a lollipop and a balloon right now.
Remember how much he loved his Pokemon balloon that he got?
That's right. And Eleanor needs a big old shrimp machine in her office. Come on, let's give these guys some give them a break.
Right.
They need a little love. So, it was, we'll keep going and see what happens next. I did not care for the scene where they were all supposedly saying Eleanor needed to be replaced. Mm-hmm. That seemed like not genuine, and you just knew she was going to walk in on it.
Right.
And when they were talking about it on the podcast, the Good Place podcast, and how poignant that all was, I'm like, yeah, if I believed it, it would have been, but it just seemed so sitcom-y, and so, well, we know exactly what's going to happen here, and then it did.
Right.
So I could have done without that. Unless it turned out that they were like demons in skin suits pretending to be Tahani and to sow discord, but that I certainly hope that is not the case. So there was a little hint dropped, like, why would they do something so easy that we could discover so quickly as Linda being muscly boy? So that kind of, I think, sowed the thought that they've done something else. Didn't it?
Yeah, I could see that.
Because there's no reason to say that if that's not the case.
Right. And I also, I had to disagree with, on the podcast, they were talking about the character of, what's his name, Brent or Brandt, or...
Oh, yeah.
The obnoxious golfing guy. And they talked about how, he has to be believable that he could be in the good place, and that they're trying to walk a line between making him, just so over-the-top obnoxious. But I think they left that line way, way back.
I think that as well. And he's just cartoonishly sitcom-y awful.
Right.
And there's no redeeming anything there. Eleanor was not a good human when she came. Right. She had many, many, many flaws, but she knew that she wasn't in the right place, and she wanted to get better so that she could stay.
Right.
And so you can look at this guy and say, well, Eleanor was bad also, but this guy is unrepentantly bad and has no interest in changing his worldview at all. So, which is, I guess, the point that, the demons want to give them as big a challenge as possible. Yeah. It's a setup now, where before it was sort of a deliberate plan in the other direction. Yeah. In both cases, the bad place wanted it to fail. So I guess it is sort of the same, but I don't know.
Yeah, but there was something in the way that they were describing it on the podcast.
Yeah.
Where they were talking about how he couldn't be like a cartoon or something. And
he's totally a cartoon.
Man, he's such a cartoon. Like, you guys missed the boat on that one.
Yeah.
Like, I think you're fantastic at what you do, but no.
Yeah.
You're wrong about this.
I think that may be part of the problem I'm feeling. And again, I'm confident that they'll find a way to make it work. But I don't relish hanging out with either him or Gossip Guy. I just dread hanging out with them. And while I liked Simone in her earlier storyline on Earth, any storyline with her now is going to be the heartbreaking getting together with Chidi stuff. Right. So it's like there's none of the humans that I'm going to be invested in. I have to be invested in our original crew, who are going to be having to have a really tough time of it. So, it'll be good. I know. I'm sure. I hope.
Yep,
costumes were nice.
Take time.
Yes. We will trust. But I felt very good indeed about this episode of The West Wing, which I quite enjoyed, even though there was a fair amount of Kazakhstan, blah, blah, blah. I enjoyed, the episode we saw was called Internal Displacement, and it was almost entirely a White House episode. Josh did come in to represent the campaign and hassle CJ, but...
And Bradley Whitford wrote it.
He did. You know what? I was so enjoying all the Will Bailey stuff, and I went back and watched it again, and then I started hearing how many times Will Bailey was describing himself as a loser and a terrible person, and I thought, did Whitford write this script? And sure enough, so that he could script Joshua Molina saying things like, I didn't do it. Toby did it. Or, it's like staring at a dog. Or, did you take an awkward pill? I'm always like this. So, it was so funny. I just really enjoyed him. And oh my gosh, he keeps getting the terrible assignments. Plan this wedding. And oh, by the way, go find out if the president's son-in-law is cheating on his daughter.
Right.
He's like, no. I always work best when I know less than everybody else in the room.
Which is a new state of mind for him.
Yes, well, I think a Bradley Whitford-induced state of mind for him. I'm sure we'll have. Right. We are now ahead of the West Weekly podcast because they threw in a special episode with Kristen Chenoweth, which was perfectly enjoyable, but not about this episode. But since we had already committed to you, our listeners, that we were going to watch that episode, we have just gone ahead and done so. So we'll maybe talk next week. We'll skip an episode next week and talk about their podcast on this episode if necessary. But there is also in this episode, overcoming, just going to pretty much skip over all the Kazakhstan blah, blah, blah part.
Okay.
And the, PSA on behalf of the terribleness of Darfur. Yes. There is the beginning of what I think of as the Danny Concannon as swoony romantic bow part of it. There's a scene in the next to last episode, which we will discuss when we get there, that just, I have to go back and watch every now and then just to go, oh my gosh. But I was wondering if that was also written by Whitford, because he had some very nice dialogue for Danny here, and it's not. It's written by a woman, which makes sense when you go to watch it. But that scene where he's so patient.
Yeah.
And he just keeps trying to say this sweet thing to her about, if I'm going to jump off a cliff and you're going to be thrown off a cliff, let's hold hands on the way down.
Yeah.
And he finally gets it out, and then her beeper goes off and she has to go, and he just sits there going, well,
Yeah, that's the way
he loves her. He loves her. It's so sweet. And we know, because we've been spoiled by the first episode of the season, that they get together. Would you have rather not had that information when you were watching these scenes?
Probably, yeah.
Oh, Danny's back. Hey, that's nice. Oh, they're trying to get together. I wonder if that's going to work out.
Right.
But I liked those scenes, even though I didn't like... CJ just seemed so rude so much of the time.
Yeah, just terribly preoccupied, if you want to give her the benefit of the doubt. But
even though she was indeed somewhat rude to the waitress, I gotta think a waitress in Washington, D.C. is going to recognize her and know that this person probably has 15 minutes to take away from running the country to eat dinner. So be kind to her.
With all the small talk, please.
It's possibly not necessary to be offended in that situation. Yeah. I would expect them to have more game in terms of dealing with busy politicos. But, well, Danny didn't care.
Yeah.
Danny, welcome back. And the only other thing I really have to say is quite the cleavage on Kate Harper. It was hard for me to keep my eye off her neckline in her scenes because they were aimed right at the camera. Right. And, you could not miss it. Now, I thought they were going to make a little joke that she was dressing that way for Will, but they really didn't. I think she did sort of sidle past him and maybe he got an eyeful, but still, there wasn't anything explicitly said. Right. And there's rules for dressing in the workplace, especially if you're working in national security.
Yeah.
Aren't there? You go down to talk to the Joint Chiefs. You want them to have eyes up. Come on.
Right.
I don't know. She's been a problematic character for the West Wing hair and clothing people.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know whether we're supposed to think it's just a character trait of hers or of Mary McCormick's, or they're just trying to, boost the ratings.
Yeah. I don't really get it because that's just not what this show ever has done.
Just seems so inappropriate.
Yeah.
Nancy McNally came to the sit room in a ball gown one time, but that wasn't her fault.
And she looked very elegant.
She did. And she admitted that it was inappropriate. So, I don't know. Come on, folks. I like Kate as a character so much, but seriously, cover those up. And Doug. Ugh. Doug. He is such a jerk. He even looked oily.
Yes, absolutely.
He's just, ugh. So now we know why Liz wasn't at the wedding, because she was afraid maybe Doug would misbehave with one of the bridesmaids. So she just said, you know what, we'll stay home.
Also, aren't her kids, really old to have a nanny.
Yeah.
Like, weren't they teenagers at this point?
Yes, they were.
So, this was an awkward storyline that they tried to shoehorn in.
It really was.
Because it didn't really make a whole lot of sense.
Yes. I think they could have found other ways for him to be awful.
Mm-hmm.
But the whole thing was just very uncomfortable. And just, Liz, seriously, Liz, you're better than this, you know?
Exactly. Like, you've been better than this guy for the entire time together. So, like, take this as a good excuse to move on.
Yes, when Ellie's husband is now the best husband in the Bartlett family. You gotta stop.
Only until Charlie gets his
That's right. That's right. But Liz has got to look at her life choices here and say,
yes.
This guy? Really? This guy?
Definitely not the best you could do.
Yes. That scene between her and CJ was good, but really hard. You know?
Yeah.
Poor CJ. And then she gets away for a date and waitresses are sassing her.
And then, California's about to explode. So.
She gets a sweet declaration of something and then has to run off to deal with a nuclear disaster.
Right.
It's hard out here for a chief of staff.
Yes, it is.
Well, I liked that
But I thought
episode.
she was right to do what she did and make sure that the president could go.
I
stump for Doug, even if Liz wanted him to. No,
yes.
thank you.
I felt a little cheated because she was going to go tell him, and we didn't get to see that scene.
Yeah.
Because I wanted to see Bartlett just blow up and describe various means of bodily harm he was planning to visit on this doofus boy. I feel cheated that we missed that. I think there could have been a really good Bartlett blow up.
Yes, and he's good at those.
Yes. I would like to see Bartlett blow up at somebody I don't like for a change.
Yeah.
So, make him ambassador to some horrible, horrible place.
Right.
And then tell Liz not to go with.
Yeah. Stay at home.
She loves him, apparently. Or
I don't know, though. I feel like it's all... She's calculated that this is what's best for her kids. I don't...
Hopefully that's... I can't remember if that's the last we see of him. But I hope so.
Good riddance.
It would not be too soon.
That's right.
Ay, awful, awful. Well, next week we'll continue with week 5 of Dancing with the Stars, which is Disney Night, and episode 3 of The Good Place, which is called Chillaxing. We will not be watching a West Wing episode because we've gotten ourselves 1 week ahead of the West Wing Weekly podcast, and we like to keep with them. So we will wait, possibly discuss the podcast episode, and then from there we will go on to finish, finally, eventually, at some point, I hope, this 7th season. Because there's episodes at the end I'm so excited to talk about, and it's going to be forever. And that will be it for our round 2 today. Please subscribe to our Parenting Roundabout podcast so you won't miss any of our episodes. We have something new for you every weekday. As always, you can find recaps, links, and an opportunity to comment on our website at parentingroundabout.com. Goodbye, Catherine.
Bye, Terry.
Goodbye, everybody.